Good dogs. All
Do you
right.
think you're human? Na na na.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she thinks she's a princess anyway. People have told her she's a princess, and she thinks they're right. She
But she
thinks she's
knows that she's
charged.
loved. You can tell that she knows she's loved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's on guard to make sure her brother does not come into the room because she wants to own the room.
When I'm at your place, she's the one who put her paws on my knees and just let me scratch the back of her head. You know, she's a great one.
Oh, Boo got in here. Hi, Boo. Are you being cute, Boo? Come here, Boo. Yes, yes, you be a cute Boo over here.
Wow. So cute. Aww. She's kissing you. Doggy kisses.
Mm-hmm. I like doggy kisses, of course. So I reward them for giving me kisses, which means, of course, they're trained to take kisses mean treats, so they will offer kisses to anybody and everybody, which being a small dog demonstrating it's able and willing to jump up as high as your head to tell you I'm willing to kiss you is actually sort of freaky if you're not really into small yappy dogs. So it can be intimidating to people who come in and are not expecting dogs. Because they go, oh,
Yeah.
why is this dog jumping at me? Because, not everybody actually wants doggy kisses. Some people would rather not have doggy kisses, and so it's.
They're clean. Cats' mouths, no, but dogs' mouths are clean.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
they're
got
relatively clean, but still, it is an animal, so
But they're
sometimes
eating.
you just don't want the animal, and sometimes you just don't want an animal up in your face. I
Yeah.
mean, they do still have teeth that can bite, even though our dogs are pretty friendly. It's understandable not to want them up in your face.
Well, I like dogs. I've always, my dad had hunting dogs.
Wow.
Yeah, and boy, they were great. I mean, he'd go deer hunting, and his dog he'd shoot a deer, and off through the woods, the dog would chase the deer.
Uh-huh. These
Yeah,
dogs are bred for chasing things like mice and vermin. There's a squirrel in the yard, and Richard can watch the squirrel do a figure eight in the yard, go around the table and under the barbecue. And in the morning, the dogs will set track the squirrel and do the exact same pattern because they're following where the squirrel went each day.
But I remember having my dog in the TV room and he wouldn't notice it. It was just a blank box. But when your dog's looking at the monitor for who's at the front door, he immediately knows it. She immediately knows it, goes right to the front door and starts to bark. But she
Yeah,
can tell.
she knows, okay, that little square of the TV is outside the front door. And
Yes, that's impressive.
uh-huh.
yeah.
The skill set. Soon we're
I
watching.
got. I'm sorry. I got dogs in front of me, dogs on the sides of me, and if I go out to pull weeds, they all start yelling, barking. But you know what? That's a good thing. I know when there's a stranger in the neighborhood. That's for sure.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Or the mailman.
So sometimes it's really annoying when they're trying to protect you from squirrels and want to alert you to the fact there's a squirrel or a duck outside. There were some migrating ducks that came through, and Boo was very indignant that there were ducks in front of the house. And I go, okay, it's a pair of ducks. I do not care. The ducks are fine. They can stay there. But Boo wanted to try to chase them away.
Maybe you can put them on your taxes and they can be deductible.
You are a very good guard dog, aren't you? You would protect me from any squirrels that ever tried to get me. You would protect me from them, wouldn't you, Boo?
Yeah. So who else is coming tonight?
And I didn't get replies from anybody telling me when they were coming, so I'm not sure. This may be it. So let's go ahead and get started.
Sure, let me get some water. Anybody want anything? That's a dumb question. Let me go get some water and come back. Unless, Joan, do you want water?
I've got it. I might need another glass, though. Not that he can hear me. This looks like a really long lesson, Aaliyah. You think we're going to get through all of this?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Open it with water in it.
I should have just gone and gotten. I think she's waiting for you to get back. Hey, you
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Alice.
Good.
Listen, I got a whole new pad, and I didn't know if it was going to work. But you can hear me, okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you see me?
No, we don't have any
No.
video yet.
Okay, I don't know how to do that. So I see you.
Good.
I think I have to do something up here. No.
This is just a check. This is just a check-in. But when my refrigerator door is open, it goes beep, beep, which is now hearing that. So I went right out to my kitchen. My doors are closed. Are your refrigerator doors closed where you are?
Yeah,
Yes.
my refrigerator is not beeping because mine does do that too, but it's not beeping right now. So
Huh. Okay,
It's
I
not
heard it.
mine.
Dan, how do I get my picture? Do you know?
The bottom left-hand corner has a picture of a little video, and there's a
Oh,
line
okay.
through it. Hit the line, and you'll come in.
Okay. Now I lost the pic.
Whoop! Oh no! I didn't mean to knock her off the screen. She'll be back. There
hopefully.
it is again. Do I have something that makes that noise?
Sometimes
Who
the
knows?
similar noise is made by the microwave when you finish microwaving something.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Huh. Yeah. When it's anybody had a microwave. Oh,
Yes, I should mute.
Do not grow out your sister Boo.
mother, son, sister, boo.
Boo and Nana fight over possession of the bed, and they growl at each other to try to say, "Hey, get off the bed! I want to be the sole person in the bed." And I was telling Boo not to growl at his sister because both of them are supposed to be good and not fight on the bed. And
Somebody
I'm not
wants to
trying to
come
chase
in.
each other
Admit.
off because I
Just
like
bring
both of
pic-
them. I don't want to have to say only one at a time. So,
There you are.
hi, Alice. There you are. We have pictures.
I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I had a mixed up day today.
Well, I'm glad you weren't lost forever. So,
You're back.
So we're
I'm
going to
back,
get
but
started in our Hebrew study by looking at some things that are in other epistles but aren't in Hebrew. So we're going to look at first at Philemon 1:1-3. If somebody would look that up.
Anybody got it handy? I gotta see if that's on my phone. Something's beeping still.
I've got it here.
Okay.
Good.
Paul, a prisoner of Christ Jesus, and Timothy, our brother, to Philemon, our beloved brother and fellow worker, and to Appia, our sister, and to Archippus, our fellow soldier, and to the church in your house. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ.
So this is an epistle greeting. What's happening here is in the beginning of the letter, he's writing who it's from and who it's to, and approximately where it's to. And this might have been on the outside of the letter that would tell people who are carrying it who they were supposed to deliver it to. So almost all of the majority of the New Testament is composed of epistles that have this sort of greeting where they're saying who the writer is and who the intended audience is. So this is just one example in Philemon. And now we're going to look at the other thing most epistles have. So look, if somebody could look up 2 Timothy 4:3-20.
I've got it too, because I've got what you wrote. Do you want me to do that one
Yeah,
again?
go ahead and read it.
When you come, bring the cloak that I left with Troas and Carpus, and the books, especially the parchments. Alexander, the coppersmith, did me much harm. The Lord will pay him according to his deeds.
Ew.
Be on guard against him yourself, for he vigorously opposes our teaching. And my first defense, no one supported me, but all deserted me. May it not be counted against them. But the Lord stood with me and strengthened me, so that through me the proclamation might be fully accomplished, and that all the Gentiles might hear. And I was rescued out of the lion's mouth. The Lord will restore me from every evil deed, and will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. And then greet Priscus and Aquila and the household of Onesimus. Erastus remained at Corinth, but Trophimus I left sick at Miletus. I don't know.
That seems so,
You get an A for that.
yeah, this is pronunciation.
Yes, all these things that have been just transliterated from Greek to English letters, but they are not
Yeah.
English words at all. And so we're even speculating how the Greek would have been pronounced, but
And I might be wrong, but that sounds kind of trivial stuff to put in the scripture.
yes, this is
Without my
basically
throat, you know, and
at
then
the
there's
end of the letter, you would get all the trivial stuff out, all the business things that had to be cleaned up. You would say, like, including, okay, make sure everybody's greeted. If anybody hasn't been addressed in the body of the letter, you greet them here. And any business, you know, it's like this weird thing about this coppersmith that he wants to give a bad review of.
yeah.
I think it's interesting, Alexander the coppersmith, that his attitude towards him was, let the Lord repay him according to his deeds.
Mhm.
And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Mhm.
But he also warned them against him. Evidently, he was not a very nice guy.
Uh-huh.
But it's interesting my first point when I thought of that was, my Lord is an ever forgiving, always gracious God that forgives everybody everything. But when you said that, I realized, okay, if that's who you are and you're in a world where that's happened with this guy, you're not going to get back at him. God is going to handle that whatever way he wants.
Yeah,
In a generous, benevolent way, but at least it's like not me or you, it's God and them.
Yeah.
It's really important that you pointed that out. Thank you.
I just want to add that, yes, God will forgive everyone. I think there has to be an attitude of wanting forgiveness in the person for that to be fully materialized.
Good.
That's,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there is this sense of reputational consequences. So Paul here in 2 Timothy, it's clear he says, look, I don't want him to be able to use the reputation of the church or of me to trick other people. So I'm going to say I did not have a good experience with him. And so, even though I'm not sure if Paul was forgiving or not, but he says, even in a gracious manner, you still don't let a rod go to the fact that it will harm other people by letting other people get caught in the same issue.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and most of us do have some sort of greeting or final message at the end. Hebrews has neither the first preamble where it explains who it's from and to, or any final greeting, so it's traditionally put with the epistles. And it's put in the section of the New Testament that is for Pauline epistles or epistles by Paul, because for many years in the early church, it was considered probably written by Paul. We don't know for sure, but anyway, when you read it, you have to realize usually you know who the letter is from and to. We are not, church tradition tells us it's to the Hebrews or to the Hebrew people, but there's nothing in the book itself that says that's who it's to, so.
Interesting.
So as you think about going to study Hebrews, knowing that it does not have these traditional features of these New Testament books, how do you feel about the fact that it's missing this opening and closing of a letter?
I don't care.
Edited? Either
I
that or
guess I'll let the Bible scholars deal with that, with determining who it's from and who it's to and all that. But it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I mean, I
I'm
feel it has
open to
enough
whatever it says.
history of being edifying to the church that we could say, yes, it's part of the Bible, and we should treat it as scripture, even though we don't have a solid provenance for who it's from or to, or what the transmission was. We don't know. Most of the books of the Bible, we could say there's a church tradition that gets some pretty solid evidence. There was the authority of an apostle behind it. This one, because we don't know exactly who it was written by, it's less evidence. But I mean, a lot of people do say it might have been Pauline. It's quite possible that Paul wrote this, but we can't. There's not enough evidence to be certain of it right now.
Yeah.
So now I also want to look at. So, but I do think there's enough internal evidence that the guess that it was to the Hebrew people is probably right. But as I look at the book and start giving interpretation based on the fact I think it was written to the Hebrews, we got to realize I'm basing that on the internal evidence. It's not something that I have external evidence for that can then give me more interpretation. The interpretation I'm giving is what's making me think it is written to the Hebrews. So you got to take all that with a grain of salt.
Well, it's in context also,
Uh-huh.
which is
So as I think it is possibly written to the Hebrews, I think they were dealing with some missing things too. So
wow.
I want to look at Deuteronomy 31-10 about
Anybody
what the Hebrew people would have already known, and many Hebrew people of this time would have been very familiar with all of the Pentateuch, all the first 5 books of the Old Testament, including Deuteronomy. So
Did you say 32?
no,
32?
verses 1-10.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. It's Deuteronomy. Oh, it's 30. Okay. Well, I got 30. Then where do I go?
Okay, in chapter
10?
3, verses 1-10.
Oh, 1 to 10. Okay. Okay, I can read that.
Okay.
Let's see. Here we go. Somebody just came in the door.
Hi, Anne.
Okay, here it is. And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul. Shall I go to number 3?
Yes.
That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee. Okay, do I go on to 4?
Yeah.
If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee.
Touch.
Any more? Do I go any more?
Yeah, we're gonna go all the way to 10, so keep going.
Okay. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above the fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart
Yeah,
and the heart of thy seed to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies
that's
and on them. What?
that's a problem to me, but that's keep going, keep going.
Oh, and on them that hate thee, which persecute thee. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of the Lord, and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day. And the Lord thy God will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of the land for good. For the Lord will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers. If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law, and if thou turn unto the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, so that's the background that me and you to be familiar with, that God has made certain promises about what he's eventually going to do for the Jewish people and the nation of Israel. And they had seen the gathering of the nations back to him. We see some of this in Ezra and Nehemiah. God seems to be very active in drawing them back. But this idea that they would be safe and secure in the land again is, at least at this time that the book of Hebrews was written, is not coming true. They are under Roman domination, and everything seems uncertain and scary in the time. I mean, sort of like now, where Israel may be technically independent and sovereign, but obviously there are scary times still in the area. And we can see this in the New Testament too. So if somebody would read Acts 15 verses 13 to 17. We see the apostles talking about it.
I can read that if you like.
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
After they had stopped speaking, James answered, saying, "Brethren, listen to me. Simeon has related how God first concerned himself about taking from among the Gentiles a people for his name. With this, the words of the prophets agree, just as it is written. After these things I will return, and I will rebuild the tabernacle of David which is fallen, and I will rebuild its ruins, and I will and I will restore it, so that the rest of mankind may see the Lord, and all the Gentiles who are called by my name. That's the end of that.
Yeah, so the Hebrew people has this justified expectation that God was not only going to do what he'd already done in drawing them back to the land, but he was going to give them a secure place there where they would not have war and political trouble threatening them.
Yeah.
So this was very associated at this time with this expectation of the Messiah. And these Christians were going around saying the Messiah has come. All the prophecies are filled, and everybody goes, no, we do not have peace in the land yet. Not everything is
Hasn't
filled.
come yet.
So they had this expectation that they were disappointed in, that if Jesus was the Messiah, then they didn't get what they expected the Messiah to do, what God had promised them would be coming. So, have you ever had expectations that were disappointed?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, I tried to sell my house up in the mountains. You know how long it took? It took a whole year.
Oh,
And every
no.
time every time I prayed to God, it was always be patient, be patient.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So my expectations were not met.
Yeah, you sort of get this idea, okay, you look at real estate sites or ads or whatever, and they say, yes, this is worth X amount. And you cannot just then go on the next day and get that amount for the property. It becomes this whole thing where people are saying, you have to do this and that and all this paperwork, and it still doesn't, it just takes more and more time before you can actually get any money out of the property.
I remember having expectations like that looking for a job.
Uh-huh.
Because you get a job and you didn't get that one and didn't get this one, which was funny about the one I've got now, which is Foothill. I just walked in. She said, "Do you want the job?" I said, "Yes, you got it." What?
No.
Wow.
Wild. And I've been there
Wow.
since. But most of the have been, no, that's not quite enough. No, no, that's not enough credentials. No, you need this and that. And so it's hard to be disappointed. You got to keep trying to
Uh-huh.
get what you want.
So I think Hebrews is going to be addressing this sense of disappointment that Hebrews have, that this promise by the prophets doesn't seem to be fulfilled. So somebody will go read Hebrews 1 verses 1 through 4.
Give me one of you guys.
Well, I'll do it. I've got it right here.
Go for it.
After God spoke long ago in various portions and in various ways of our ancestors through the prophets, in these last days he has spoken to us in a Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom he created the world. The Son is the radiance of his glory and the representation of his essence, and he sustains by all things by his powerful word. And so when he had accomplished cleansing for sin, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high. Thus he became so far better than the angels, as he has inherited a name superior to theirs.
So the writer first of all says, look, God had promised through various portents and to all these prophets. And yes, you can say there's nothing wrong with looking at that to set expectations, but we can also look at this, that so this writer is claiming that Jesus the Son was also a prophet. So first off, he's affirming that yes, you had a basis for your expectations. So on what basis do you usually form expectations?
Let other people start, because I'm ready to jump in, but let other people have a chance.
What was the question? I missed it.
On what basis do you usually form your expectations? Like, as I think of what I expected, things like what I expected college to be like, a lot of things, I ended up basing a lot of things on things like movies, which did not turn out to be a reliable guide. But
Yeah,
I think
right.
there's a lot of people who, the general media culture of the time will set expectations, which may or may not be
Good or not.
reliable.
Yeah.
Like I remember talking to the people in the Philippines, and they wanted to know how much like was America like what they saw in the movies. Like, and I was going, well, some things are accurate, some things not at all like.
Yeah. Right, right.
Hollywood.
Yeah, just like when you're going on vacation and you expect something great and the place isn't that great,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, when you're looking at advertisements, the people advertising the product will often
Yeah,
want to
misleads
give
you.
you exaggerated expectations of what it's going to be.
Yes.
Well, not necessarily prophets all the time, but sometimes you have a hero or someone you really respect. And maybe it works out that they're not doing what you expect. And so your expectations are kind of dimmed.
Mm-hmm.
Joan, cover your ears. What do you call ecumenicism between Jews and Catholics? Profit sharing. Okay, moving on. I see that wince. She's heard it before.
Oh,
But it
dear.
is profit, Prophet sharing.
Yeah.
And it is the new he has in these days he has appointed to us a son whom he appointed heir of all things and through whom he created the world. So we're going, this is all, this is God in all these forms. The Son
Yeah.
is the radiance of his glory and the
So he's
representation.
saying, look, Moses was a prophet. It's good to expect that, but we want to add in Jesus is also a prophet that's going to change things. So the same basis you have for the old expectation, we could transfer it to Jesus, and he can set new ways of looking at things. So we have, yes, the Jews and Catholics will both acknowledge that Moses is a prophet, but if you add, the Catholics will say Jesus was a prophet too, and that makes a lot of difference.
And the words you just used of expectation and prophet, consider yourself to be a prophet. And what are the expectations of the people on you? And what can you actually have happen? It's a tough world to be a prophet.
So he was trying to set up its readership to say, look, sometimes you can get more information and you have to change your expectations. They had an expectation that when the Messiah come, immediately they would get all this fulfillment of peace in the land where they could have security and live in comfort. And we know that even now this hasn't been an immediate, there are still a prophecy is maybe still valid for the future, but it's not their lived reality right now. And so Hebrews is asking us, okay, are you ready to change expectations? So have you ever had to change an expectation, and how did it feel?
Well, I was a member of this church, and we got a new pastor in, and I thought it would just grow like crazy. It'd been really a popular church, but it didn't. It just went downhill, 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 downhill. And so there were just a few of us left, and a lot of the programs dropped off. And I was very angry with the pastor, and I had no right to be, because I expected him to be out there knocking on doors, and he wasn't. But I wasn't either. So I had to. I did leave that church, and I'm not sorry that I did. But it was just, I realized later on I had no right to be angry with the pastor. I couldn't be out knocking on doors. I wouldn't expect that out of the pastor either. So I changed my expectation.
So where do you go now?
Park Victoria.
He goes to my church.
That's yours,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's a great church. We
So
kind
I
of took
had
a
a lot of
whack.
expectations for this
It's
year.
meeting your expectations.
I had
Right?
expectations for this year. So this year I was elected treasurer of Park Victoria. And I'd
All
been
right.
on the stewardship committee for a while, so I knew a lot about how it worked. And I had all these plans about, and I'd already started training out all these plans about how I was going to organize things and how I wanted to run it. And then I had a stroke in January, and I was not, I myself was just not able to do any of the things I had planned to do. So
Yeah.
I'm
and
sorry
it
for
did
that.
feel like, no, I had been very emotionally attached to my vision of what I was going to do and how I was going to control things. And I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I felt like this was going to be what my service to God was going to look like, was this particular thing that I had planned to do. And it was a wrench to sort of say, okay, well, maybe it won't look like that. And try to reorientate my expectations.
Yeah. Not an easy thing to do. Change expectations.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So Hebrews is asking its audience to consider the sun as this new source of expectations. So how do you feel about that? So this information in verse 3 and 4, where it's saying, look, we want the sun to be the source of expectations now. Yes, Moses was good, but now we want you to look at the sun, and God has this, he wants this new prophet he wants you to look at. How do you feel about that change of focus that Hebrews is asking for here?
Yeah, and 4 is, thus he became so far better than the angels, as he has inherited a name superior to them. A name, not just a name, but he is a person superior to them, is a person of the Trinity. And forming expectations, learning how to do, one of the things I have had in my life, very high expectations of myself, which ended up being then didn't do that. Bad girl, you blew it, you're just bad, and you're just never going to make anything because you just didn't get this done and that done. And I'm getting to live in a different sort of expectation. For instance, this meeting, I really wanted to attend this meeting. I have a group that I am supporting that is actually connected with El Salvador, but is on Sunday, and the only day that I can go up and get the posters for that was today, and the driving took a little bit longer, whatever. But I was able. One of the things I'm grateful for is I can laugh at myself. Laugh
Yeah.
at, you thought you were going to do what? And so I am in the car, but sitting still, because my next event is a meeting. We're going to have Maria Marroquin, who is the head of the Day Worker Center.
Yeah.
She's coming to talk tonight.
Wow.
And for that, we have a centering prayer, well, not mine is centering prayer, but it's a meditation time. So I have this time, and I'm waiting at the church for this stuff to
Oh,
start.
good. You're not driving.
Carefully, I drove safely, and I got here, and then I was able to get onto Zoom, which for a while I couldn't do that. So all of that, these were not exactly my expectations of how this is going to go, but I get to be with all of you. So this is like, yeah, just like I can go, wow. And that expectations I didn't have at all. Are showing up. So there you go.
Excellent.
Well, I have one, but it has nothing to do with this, but my expectations were shot today. First I went and got my nails done. Then I walked over to grocery outlet in Milpitas, right? Because I take the BTA. So I sat out there, I had to wait a whole hour for my car, right?
Huh.
And you know how bad the winds are. The winds are really blowing today.
Oh.
So I had 3 bags in my basket, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there on my walker, and there goes my basket all the way down into the street. And I knew
Oh.
my basket. So my expectations were really bad there. And it went and hit a car.
Oh.
I
Oh,
don't think the
no.
car knew it hit it. So I thought, oh, I'm probably going to get sued now. But no, it worked out okay. Nobody came after me. So I'm
Good. And who's going to sue a
We won't tell, Alice.
Right.
no, don't tell. But I got my bag of Halloween candy for $10.
All right.
Yeah. I don't usually go shopping, and I thought, well, I was able to walk from the nail salon to grocery outlet. So anyway, that was kind of unexpected event.
Yes.
Yeah, and there can be things where we're expecting bad things and they don't happen, and that can be a good resetting of expectations. But
Yeah.
So are your groceries okay?
Yeah, I only had 3 bags. The candy didn't melt. It was fine.
Uh,
My God.
so let's look at how the Hebrews had to reset negative expectations. Let's go, and if somebody would look up Nehemiah 13:17 through 21.
Oh, Nehemiah.
Yes.
Wasn't he a
Nehemiah.
bullfrog?
Yeah, I thought of it, but I didn't want to say it.
Too late.
Okay.
So I can read that if you want.
Please.
So 13:17 to 21. Hold on a minute. I reprimanded, that's what I thought was not the beginning of the sentence, but there we go. I reprimanded the nobles of Judah, demanding, what is this evil thing you are doing, profaning the Sabbath day? Did not your ancestors act in the same way, with the result that our God has brought all this evil upon us and upon this city? Would you add to the wrath against Israel by once more profaning the Sabbath? When the shadows were falling on the gates of Jerusalem before the Sabbath, I ordered the doors to be closed and prohibited their reopening until after the Sabbath. I posted some of my own people at the gates so that no load might enter on the Sabbath day. The merchants and sellers of various kinds of merchandise spent the night once or twice outside Jerusalem. But then I warned them, why do you spend the night alongside the wall? If you keep this up, I will beat you. From that time on, they did not return on the Sabbath.
Give me a quick, who's I? On?
Nehemiah, I think it is
Nehemiah.
Nehemiah. So this is an Old Testament prophet. This is after they have come back from the exile, and they are rebuilding Jerusalem, and then they're trying to reestablish a Jewish culture in Jerusalem again. And Nehemiah is the governor appointed by the Shah of Iran.
mhm.
So he has some outside secretary. He's also a prophet. God has told him, look, I'm putting you in the position to restore the culture of following the Torah to Jerusalem and to Israel. So he's there trying to rebuild a culture.
How does this relate to the Babylonian captivity?
Well, after Babylon is captured by the Medes and the Persians, i.e. Persia, i.e. Iran,
Right.
and they come and they take over, and then under Cyrus, God moves Cyrus' hearts and prophesy him to such a way that Cyrus sends people back to Jerusalem, and they basically rebuild Jerusalem under
Wow.
the Persians. So there's this
Because
whole
according to, like, my last name has been interpreted in so many different ways besides fill in the blank. But one of them was Philon, who translated the Bible into Greek during the Babylonian captivity, therefore saving it. But I don't know how that relates to the rest of history.
Philo the Alexandrian was in Egypt, and so after Alexander the Great dies, and so Alexander the Great comes and conquers all the way down the
That's a great
Levant,
thing.
and he conquers Persia and Egypt, and
Yeah.
it all becomes Hellenized. It becomes Greek speaking, and
Ah, what
then
next?
Egypt becomes a center of culture under the Ptolemies, who was one of Alexander's generals, and there's the Seleucids, which end up more or less in ruling Syria, and with some claim to the past in the area of Israel, and they periodically persecute Israel and conquer it. And they fight with Egypt over who's going to control Israel. And so there's a bunch of
The
back and
other way
forth.
around.
Israel keeps getting sacked in this period.
So that's been an
And
area of
Philo of
turmoil
Alexander
forever.
makes the reputation of the Jewish culture and people. He translates the Torah. He also has this philosophy that says, look, what this Socrates fellow is saying, this Plato fellow is saying, that's just what we've been saying all along. We knew this all along. We are the real OG of wisdom, because we always knew what Plato was saying even long before, and he explained how Jewish wisdom and Jewish monotheism connected to this idea of the one that Plato had, and this idea of the forms. And he was pretty right about this. So he is very influential in philosophy, connecting Judaism to Greek philosophy. He made Judaism very relevant and very respected in his time. So he
So
comes
many
a little bit
connections.
afterwards, really. He's under the Ptolemies.
Yeah.
They sponsor him in doing his translation and so his work in making Judaism a respectable language throughout religion throughout the Mediterranean takes place in that time. And that's one reason why the Romans do not do as much to persecute the Jews as they might otherwise have done, as we doing in some other areas, is because they
Going to the bathroom.
see themselves as wanting to be respectable of Greek eyes, and everybody who knows Greek philosophy knows really the Jews know what they're talking about. They are a respected old-time religion that has these deep wisdom roots that should be respected. So, and Philo of Alexandria had a lot to do with that.
Interesting.
She knows it.
So much deep interconnected religions and cultures.
Uh-huh.
I thought of them as being so separate. They ain't. They're all
Wow. That's a
Yeah, this
belief.
whole
connected.
time
They
period, you get a
belong.
lot of mixing. Alexander the Great caused a lot of mixing, and
Mm.
of course the Medes and the Persians you see them in the Old Testament, but they are very much important in history, and they had a big impact on the whole region.
And that's a name I haven't heard before. Medes, Medes.
Medes.
Wow.
Armenia was part of the Median lands originally.
Armenia. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, so
Are you Romanian?
they were part of
Yeah.
the Medes and the Persians. So the Medes and the Persians were both related Aryan tribes that eventually coalesced. And in the end, it was the Persian Empire, even though really people from both tribes were still involved.
Wow.
I mean, I can't know everything, but to have something that important just escape by me, the Medes, amazes me.
I learned something myself. I didn't know I was a Medes. That's crazy.
Uh-huh.
I learned something.
History,
Sorry,
history.
I had
Wow.
to step out a minute. But they got dinner ready, but I'll wait till this is over.
I didn't know I was a Litvak, Lithuanian Litvak.
Oh,
You were, depending on when it was, you were, your
Yeah.
family was various definitions. Linz,
Vilnius and
yeah.
Vilna, because there was so much herbs, not but diamonds and elements under the ground that the Russians had it, and then the Poles had it. They bounced it back and forth. So depending on when you were there as to what you were.
Uh-huh.
Right.
And I don't know who I am.
Well, it's okay.
Lost
I
in
know
time.
who you are. It's okay. We got it.
you're Dan. In case you forgot, your name is
Hey,
Dan.
that's nice.
Nice.
I knew
Very
that
well
name tag
done.
meant something.
So Nehemiah has this thing where he says, look, as we come back, we see that we have not been keeping the Sabbath. And this was a big thing that why God sent Israel into exile, because they had not been keeping the Sabbath. He said, okay, Nehemiah is going to say, establish, okay, we need to keep the Sabbath. And so they need to, in order to avoid God punishing them and get the good promises instead of the bad promises, they need to keep the Sabbath.
By force. I mean, I'm always an artist of someone who wants to argue. That's what are called pilpul in Jewish. It's like the people who were guards, they were working. They're not supposed to be working. It's the Sabbath. So you're hiring people to work when they're not supposed to, if the Sabbath is supposed to be free.
Yeah, and part of the Sabbath keeping was you weren't
Good
supposed to
point.
have your maid servants or your men servants working either. So you weren't supposed to be participating in making anybody work on the Sabbath. So it was
Like
an
if you
open thing
Yeah.
around the Sabbath where nobody was supposed to work, and it was that's why
If you-
Israel had not kept it for a long time, because it was so disruptive. They had said, "Look, we're not going to bother with this. It's silly." And
yeah,
and
many
God
elevators
did
in Israel.
specifically say, "Look, I'm sending you into the Babylon exile for 70 years. You're going to make up all the years of missed Sabbath by spending 70 years in Babylon."
Wow.
Now they're back to Babylon, and Nehemiah is saying, "Look, we need to do the Sabbath thing now," and he's getting them. So you can see in Nehemiah 13:22 how he's very concerned with this. If somebody want to read Nehemiah 13:22, where he says he has Nehemiah has a goal for what
Well,
they're to do about this.
Go for it.
yeah, I can finish Nehemiah. Then I ordered the Levites to purify themselves and to watch the gates, so that the Sabbath day might be kept holy. So that's Levites, because they who would be the ministers, like the pastor. The pastor's working on the Sabbath, like that. Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's
So this too, remember in my favor, my God, and have mercy on me in accordance with your great mercy.
So Nehemiah said, "Look, the Levites, they're going to sort of work on the Sabbath, but just to make sure everybody else keeps it." And he's saying, "God, see, I'm doing my best to keep it. We know you're merciful. Can't you count my effort as doing my best to keep it?" So that was back in Nehemiah, but now we're maybe 100 years later in the time of Jesus, and we're going to see what Jesus, how the Sabbath keeping is going. And somebody will turn over to Matthew 12 and read verses 1 and 2.
I'll do that.
Okay.
oh,
At that time, Jesus was going through the field of grain on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry and began to pick the heads of grain and eat them. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to him, "See, your disciples are doing what is unlawful to do on the Sabbath."
50 people.
So if you read the
And
rest of that, you see
what did
Jesus says, "Look,
Jesus say?
I can make an exception and say they are allowed to. It's okay to feed yourself on the Sabbath. if you're hungry, you can pick something up and put it in your mouth. That's okay. And
But
they are,
the
They
David,
were
they are
David.
based, if you've ever eaten wild oats or eaten grain fresh from the field, you just sort of peel off the outer tough
Yeah.
bark chaff and eat it.
And even in the more conservative parts of Israel now, the elevators stop at every floor. You didn't make a spark on the Sabbath by pushing the button. They just automatically go floor to floor, and that still happens.
Uh-huh.
It's tedious, but
But
that's
then
what
you
they
can
do.
see there is now the Pharisees say there's a social expectation that everybody keeps the Sabbath. And we know from Roman writings that was generally knows that in this period of time, Jews were known for not wanting to work on the Sabbath, and even sometimes deciding, look, it's the Sabbath, we aren't going out to battle today. So it's easier to attack them on the Sabbath because nobody would go out and fight on the Sabbath.
Ouch, ouch, ouch. That's not
But this
fair.
had changed. It was now a known thing that Jews did keep the Sabbath, so.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
So the Israelites had changed their culture, so now it was, even though it was inconvenient, and they knew it created some weaknesses like this getting attacked on the Sabbath thing, they changed their culture so that they were generally keeping it. Why do you think the Israelites changed their culture like this? What were they
Necessity.
expecting to come out of this?
They were expecting God to approve of them and help them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They were expecting God to protect them and keep them in the land and keep them safe, as he had many times in the past in the Old Testament. We can see in the time of the judges and such, he kept saving Israel again and again.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think this was a reasonable expectation that God would keep them safe and saving them.
Complex religion.
But
I remember,
didn't at another time, didn't Jesus also say this the Sabbath was made for man, not man for
Yes,
the
you can see in
Sabbath?
this, in fact, what he reacted to when he's saying that. He said, look, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath.
Right, okay.
You shouldn't let the Sabbath be to your detriment, because that was not God's intention, and you need to follow God's intentions rather than just doing this quid pro quo things where you say, hey, God, I gave you the payment, now you need to pay me back.
ouch. Right.
And I get to
It's
blame
not
you.
just you can do this magic ritual and then you will force God to do things for you. God is not, you cannot force God's hand by doing the ritual. You cannot force God to give you a blessing. And so,
One thing, and Father used to say, when I pray, I notice more coincidences.
mhm.
That I pray and that will happen. You don't always know that, but you notice more coincidences is a kind of a casual way of saying sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But
Yeah.
you keep praying.
Mhm.
So were they expecting something from God? In other words,
They were expecting, God had said in the Old Testament, look, if you obey my commandments, I will make you secure in the land and give you these blessings, and no one will ever attack you.
But they
And
did.
if they do, I will defend you, because God, remember in the Old Testament, he would have miracles, and enemies that would come to attack them, and suddenly they would hear noises and suddenly be terrified and flee when nobody was coming. So there was this set up pattern where God would protect Israel at certain times when they were obeying.
Wow. Open to interpretation.
Uh-huh. But we know during the Roman times we saw all the Seleucids. The Seleucids, this dynasty of Greeks that were ruling Syria, they kept attacking Israel. But you could then also look at the prophets in Daniel, line up the attack the Seleucids had, and it was like one for one, bang, 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 all in order. What Daniel had prophesied was coming true. All culminate in this coming of the Messiah that we know, looking at things like the Dead Sea Scroll, everybody said, yeah, this is the time when you expect the Messiah to come. And it does line up with when Daniel prophesied he would come. And many Christians were saying, yes, Jesus was the fulfillment of this prophecy. But people were going, yeah, but the prophecy says this was always the deal. Prophecy, the deal was he would make Israel secure in their land so that he would restore David's throne in such a way that as when David was ruling Israel and all the nations around him would come to court David and Solomon and say, hey, we want to be allies with you. And basically Israel was the hegemonic power in the region. They wanted that back where they could say, look, we want to be able to say nobody wants to attack us. Everybody knows that if people attack us, God is on our side and God will defend us and people will respect us. And Jesus did not bring that bam conquering king where whether or not he might have had the power to just, make armies stumble, but he never showed that power, and he didn't come and establish the throne of David as a kingdom that would throw the Romans out and back to the Seleucid and Egypt and everybody respect Israel again. He was
Now,
not making
once
Israel
again,
great again like they wanted.
I used to respect Israel when I was a kid. We'd send a tree to Israel every Arbor Day, and the money to do that. And now I just have so little respect for Israel. They've changed in my mind to much more of a belligerent society.
Mhm.
And yes, they've been attacked. And yes, they're attacking back. And they've done it for years. You're going to blame our president for the war in the Middle East? I don't think so. So it's hard to know. How do they stop?
And so there's an expectation that Israel would not have to be fun because God would just make them respected, whether they were out there fighting or not. Did not come through Jesus. Jesus did not do that.
No.
So there was this time where Jesus did not meet quite all the expectations that were set. There was an expectation of a Messiah, but Jesus didn't meet all the expectations everybody had. There were some expectations that people had that he did not meet. So Hebrews is dealing with the fact that, okay, yes, there were prophets saying that Israel is going to be established and the descendants of David are going to have a secure throne here. And
I hate to interrupt, but I have to go. Okay.
okay,
But I really enjoyed the session, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
yeah,
Great.
Okay. God bless everyone.
God bless you for being here.
Bye.
bye.
All right. Now I'm coming. I am coming.
So let's also look at Luke 23:41 through 43, another place where Jesus deals with different expectations.
I can read that one.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
And indeed, we have been condemned justly, for the sentence we received corresponds to our crimes. But this man has done nothing criminal. Then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus replied to him, Amen, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. Yeah. There is a
So this is during the crucifixion.
there's a book.
One of the people crucified along Jesus is traditionally called a thief, but he was a condemned criminal. One of these expectations was he was a zealot, a rebel. One of these people that's going along and saying, hey, we need to rebel against the Roman and restore the Davidic kingdom. And they had various candidates for who they were going to pick for the Davidic king. But many of both the Jews and the Romans said these were troublemakers and these were preventing peace. And so they were seen as basically terrorists of the time, that they would go and do guerrilla style attacks on various infrastructures, and a lot of people didn't like him, so he was condemned. So
That's one of the, so Matthew Kelly there's a book that it sits him as, it is not said that this is so, but it was a possibility that this was a person who didn't have food, family didn't have food, stole food. Okay, now he's the enemy. Now and various things happened in his life that led him to become the thief, a thief, even though he was a good person. He did not know how else to get out of that situation, being the thief. And so then here he is on this cross, and there's this good thief. So
Oh,
that's
is
an
that where the good
interesting way
thief
of,
comes from? Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I've
we
actually
don't know
had
what
an
his
experience.
actual situation was, but he does
I
know
was just
the
going to
social
share.
situation he was in, and he does know that the society around him was condemning whatever he was doing, and they weren't friendly to him, and he knew that crucifixion was the sort of thing that the Romans and the Jews did about this.
Did you have a comment, Joan?
Yeah, but that's okay. I don't need to take the time for my personal stuff.
well, it'd be good to hear.
Go
Well,
ahead.
besides which, I've forgotten it.
Oh,
Oh, I do that. Okay.
and I'm thinking of the show we watch, Leverage. It says sometimes the bad guys make the best good guys.
Oh, I have no idea what I was going to say.
So this maybe thief, maybe rebel, had an expectation that yes, the society he was in would crucify him for what he had done because they didn't like his kind. So he also
Mhm.
saw Jesus. What expectation do you think he had of Jesus?
Ooh.
Well, he
That
for
he
sure
knows that
didn't.
Jesus is going to his kingdom, it'll be your kingdom, Jesus.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so this was a way of phrasing the typical Messianic expectation of a Davidic king who would
Mhm.
reign and would have these powers of a prophet behind him, which would include things like resurrection. Because we know things like Elijah did resurrect some people, so it's not beyond the possibility that they think some people will be resurrected when the Messiah comes. So
Mhm.
Jesus saying, look, I'm not saying this kingdom thing is or isn't going to come about, but today you will be with me in paradise. Paradise, he knows that paradise is a place in Hades. It's a place where the dead are. It's a good place, but it's a place where the dead are. So
Mhm.
Jesus says, hey, guess we're both going to die, but we'll be together in a good place for the dead to be in.
Yeah.
So what do you think the thief on the cross thought about Jesus reframing the expectations like that?
I thought he felt welcomed. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Joyful, even.
You're
Uh-huh.
not
That
alone. Be
expectation for the
together. We will be
future.
together. You're not alone. Yeah. And joyful. I like joyful.
So somebody read Hebrews 1, 5 through 9.
I'll read it. For to which of the angels did God ever say, "You are my son, today I have fathered you"? Or in another place he says, "I will be your father, and I will be his father, and he will be my son." But when he again brings his firstborn into the world, he says, "Let all the angels of the God worship him." And he says of the angels, he makes his angels winds of his ministries, a flame of fire. But of the Son, he says, just a second, I gotta get to that. Oh, messed myself up here. I'm sorry, I lost. I think I can get it. There you go. But of a Son, he says, your throne, O God, is forever and ever, and a righteous scepter is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated lawlessness. So God, your God, has anointed you over your companions as the oil of rejoicing.
Wow.
Who's he talking to here?
So the author of Hebrews is in bolstering the claims that we want to focus our expectations on the prophecy of the Son. It's calling back various Old Testament references, and we're going to look at a few of those about where he's referencing some of these things and saying, look, this idea of the Son was already in all these other Old Testament prophecies already. So this setup that we should center ourselves on the Son rather than the other prophets has precedence, is what Hebrews is saying here. He's pointing us back to the same Old Testament prophecies. We got these ideas of this conquering king from, to say, hey, yes, there's also this other thing about what the Son is supposed to be like. So, if someone would look up Samuel 7:12 to 15, which is one of the passages referenced above here.
When the time comes for you to die, I will raise up when the time comes for you to die, I will raise up your descendant, one of your own sons, to succeed you, and I will establish his kingdom. He will build a house for my name, and I will make his dynasty permanent. I will become his father, he will become my son. When he sins, I will correct him with the rod of men and with wounds inflicted by human beings.
Ew.
But my loyal self will not be removed from him, as I removed it from Saul, whom I removed from before you. So yeah, Solomon had a lot of good stuff.
I think he might be talking to David at this point, but this is one
He's
of the
talking to David.
saying,
Yeah.
look, I'm going to set up a descendant of David as this eternal king. But he's
And
also
that's Solomon.
saying, yes, but that's not all the prophecy. The prophecy isn't just about the king. I mean, it's about God staying with his Son and having an ongoing relationship, where this problem of sin and falling away that Israel kept having is not going to occur, because there is this loyal love that will never be removed. So that he's saying, look, yes, there's this expectation about this eternal kingdom, but there's also something else going on here. So let's also look at Psalm 45, 5 through 8.
We should let Nadine do this one.
Psalm 45.
Uh-huh.
Okay. One through 8. Should I read where it says to the master according to the lilies? Minstrel of the sons of Korah, a love song.
Start at verse 5.
My
Start
heart
at verse 5.
overflows with a pleasing theme. I address my verses to the king. My tongue is like the pen of a ready scribe. You are the most handsome of the sons of men. Grace is poured upon your lips. Therefore, God has blessed you forever. Gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one, in your splendor and majesty. In your majesty, ride out victoriously for the cause of truth and meekness and righteousness. Let your right hand teach you awesome deeds. Your arrows are sharp in the hearts of the king's enemies. The people fall under you. Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of your kingdom is a scepter of uprightness. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, God has appointed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions. Your robes are all fragrant with myrrh and aloe and cassia. From the ivory palaces, stringed instruments make you glad. Daughters of kings are among your ladies of honor, and at your right hand stand the queen in gold of Ophir. Did you want me to go on?
No, that's enough for now. So we see all these things, these reference in Hebrew and these Old Testament verses. It's calling to mind in its audience, saying, "What is God promising about the Messiah here?" So, what do you see God promising about the Messiah?
Well, he's victorious over evil.
Yes, so this promise of this conquering king is still there. I do not think it's any longer the center of the promise. The center says, look, there is this king that makes a throne in Jerusalem, but the focus is no longer just on the fact he's a king conquering sin. There's also this focus on justice and righteousness reigning and sin being conquered. So it's the same promise, but it has a new focus. It's not just conquering Israel's physical enemies, it's also conquering evil and sin and injustice as well. So there's this change of expectation. The focus is different. Okay, yes, you could still get that, but now it's more of a background promise, and the main thing you're supposed to be looking forward to is this coming of justice and this conquering of sin. So basically, this whole passage is saying, look, the promise is not totally God. It's just the focus is slightly different. And the first thing you get, the main thing to look for now is this conquering of evil and sin and this coming of justice. So it's suggesting, look, if we just change the focus a little bit, you can see the expectations are still fulfillable and even fulfilled in Jesus. It's not quite what you were originally thinking for, but it's part of the same theme. It's just
Did you widen your
aimed a little
expectation?
differently.
In doing so, did you widen your expectations?
Yeah, because it now says, look, it's not only about conquering the problems of the people physically attacking you. It's the whole problem of this cycle of sin that Israel goes through. We want to conquer this whole thing. And the internal injustices, because I mean, there's still a problem of Israel's injustice to itself, of the whole thing is God's been saying all through, okay, there's a problem of not keeping the Sabbath, but there's also problems of people treating their brother Israelites. That's a problem too. And that's a bigger problem. And then we need to solve this also.
Yeah. I don't know who said it, but it was in something we just read it, that the biggest problems can't be solved, they can only be outgrown. Is that what it said, Joe?
Yep.
Is that
And
Gandhi?
so we're seeing this thing where God is saying, look, the problem isn't only, okay, yes, the surrounding Israel people do keep attacking you. That is a problem. But there's also this problem that you need to outgrow your tendency to sin. And that's the main thing that this new Davidic king is going to conquer for.
Shane will say, ask, did it work?
Uh-huh.
Did that kingdom come into fruition and peace, justice, and unity came because they found the right Davidian king?
Yet.
I don't know the answer. I'm not poking.
Not
The
yet.
first thing is yes. So the thing that Christians are saying, hey, God has conquered sin in our hearts, and that's the most important thing. And once that has been conquered, it does change. Society will change with as people, and we can look at history and say, yes, in history, the human heart changed, and you got a different standard of ethics that humanity followed from then on out.
Wow.
But of course, that didn't necessarily solve Israel's problems.
That's what I mean, unfortunately.
I mean, the Jews still had their own ethics that they held by, and God had set up some good ethics for them, and did help them in some ways, but that didn't solve all the problems.
No. Shame.
And this new Christian ethic that the rest of us followed, sometimes it helped the Jews, but a lot of times it did not. A lot of times it was actually hostile to Judaism in many ways. Because it set up this different expectation about they're using the same prophets but to say different things, and that created a lot of tension sometimes. When both of them were looking to Moses as a prophet and getting different messages from that, and you could get conflict in there and things, so it didn't solve all the Jews' problems. But Hebrews here is saying, look, can you recenter the focus of your expectations? So have you ever had to refocus the center of your expectations, and how did you feel about that?
Deep question.
You know, because I was thinking how I had these expectations about this year's treasure and how I had to let go of that. And God did send me through a Bible study that we were doing at my church, at a church function I went to, that said, look, your focus of service is going to be through Bible study.
Oh,
Okay. And I could say, okay, yes, this is a good thing. God is saying, this is good. And I do hope that this can be a valuable service to God and to others, is to do, I think I do have something where I can still do Bible studies, and I think that can still be useful to people.
I really think so,
Feel
and
like
I
that
Me
think
this is
that
too.
you really do that, and it is a blessing for me to hear other people being called and knowing that they're called. And I get to read about people who say, you know, I was called to this, and I just came to do this, and you really just do amazing Bible
You
study. Thank
do.
you.
You do. I like them. You personifies the phrase that I heard, that a human being is a being called. This, what you're being called to do is magnificent and helpful.
and say, I could say, okay, yes, God is calling me to service, not the service that I initially wanted, but it's a different service, and I like it just as much. And I can say, yes, if God can use it, and I believe in God's power to use things like that, He can use it fruitfully, and it will be just as valuable. If this is
Yeah.
what God wants, Bible study can be just as valuable as being an organized treasure would have been. I still think that was a good dream too, but I think being a good Bible study teacher could also be very valuable to God.
Yeah.
That's what God wants from me.
I truly appreciate it. I think we all do.
Yeah, and you have all that Greek to go back to, so
Yeah.
it really helped. My father studied Greek to be able to Greek and Hebrew to be able to understand the Bible better. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. And I just wanted to say that Aaliyah and I are working together to get the Roman study published, and we'll do the same thing with the Hebrew study.
That's great.
So other churches could do this.
Amazing.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so in a couple of weeks we'll look at how we need to value this new focus and gift God is pointing us towards. So I'll turn off the recording now so that we can do prayer requests.
Thank you, Aaliyah.